Okay. Yeah. Good to go.
All right, well,
We're back.
we're back. And it's a holiday special.
Yeah.
a
The first
year-ender.
one.
I have a question for you,
I love questions.
which is excluding Daniel Ek, who is on your music business naughty list this year? And you're welcome to nominate a nice list as well.
What are the? I don't even know the names of the two new co-CEOs. Do you know of Spotify?
Oh, they are even more Scandinavian than Daniel Ek's name. I don't remember.
I actually remember one of them because I'll tell you why.
Is Jens Lindemann one?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a name.
Who's
That's
Jens?
a name.
That's just a Swedish guy's name.
Yeah, I'll tell you one that I know, and the reason why I know it is because I was listening to Critical Listening, and I know that one of them is named Gustav Soderstrom.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true? Is that right?
Yeah. That's who I was thinking of. Jens Lindemann is a Canadian trumpeter who actually think maybe from Cap or something. That's really funny. So no, not affiliated with Spotify at all.
You pulled that one from the gig list memory banks or something someday.
That's so funny. Well, it could have been. It could be. And hope that one day he becomes a Spotify executive.
Yeah.
Gets his due.
Well, somehow 6 months have passed since we were last at your place doing an episode of the show.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah. A lot has happened.
It was much warmer.
Yeah. It was much, much warmer. It's raining out here right now in Vancouver.
Rainfall warning.
Yeah. But we're stoked to be wrapping up an interesting year, like we did 25 episodes. This being episode 25 this year.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
From nothing. What month did we start?
We started, well, that's funny because of the way that we set it up, right? Like we started making episodes. We didn't even have a name for the show when we started making the episodes. And then we started, I like to do that whenever I've launched a show, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think episode 5, we put out, we actually recorded one that we never put out. So there's 26 if you count that one too.
The
we did
lost
a tester.
episode. Oh yeah.
So there is that, but yeah, we have put out 25 now for the year 2025 with this one.
Was the tester? We didn't actually record a podcast format topic. We were just checking the actual the technical workings of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember what we talked about.
I think we just talked about what we might talk about on this podcast. We were testing that the mics worked and that the Google Meet thing was going to be fine.
Yeah.
And wow, we've come a long way from there.
Yeah, in my mind, that's the perfect number of episodes of a show to do in a year is because that's one every other week or something. Unless you're going weekly or daily or some crazy stuff that we're not doing. I think that's pretty much perfect. So
it felt like a really nice cadence. I think when we started trying to do weekly, we both quickly realized that that's quite a lot of work to keep up in a very narrow niche where you could maybe have a week where it was kind of quiet. There's plenty to talk about, but news-wise or whatever, 2 weeks is kind of the good cadence for that.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. So we got settled into that right around after we were last here. For the second half of the year, that's kind of what we settled into.
Yeah. And it has worked out great.
Yeah, I pulled some numbers just for fun.
I see you have our
small numbers, but fun numbers.
Our Upsample Wrapped.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I prepared Upsample Wrapped 2025 for Carson. Yeah,
okay, great. Hitting us some numbers.
Well, we have over 1,000 downloads for sure, which is something, that's across all platforms. We had 1,200 downloads on our episodes, and we had how many hours of watch time? I wrote it down. I don't have it in front of me. What did I say for YouTube?
About 130 hours.
130 hours of watch time on YouTube. Yeah, okay, that's also something.
That is also something.
I do remember what the top 3 episodes are.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a clear top 3.
Yeah.
Most popular episode, VSO Musician Strike. Second most popular episode is Side Door.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was the one that's called It's Time to Leave Spotify Now, right? Or something like that from July.
Yeah, exactly.
When the stories around that started to reach more people.
I think those are a great top 3.
Makes sense.
Those make sense. VSO Musician Strike got a lot of traction, I think, among the striking musicians and some of the news around that. So I think that makes sense. We did not pivot to being a current events local news podcast after that, but we could have done. Side Door, obviously super well researched and in depth, and our highest production value.
Yeah, for sure.
Was tough to follow that one up. And yeah, It's Time to Leave Spotify was also, I think, topical. It was around the Daniel Ek stuff. I think a lot of our friends and people who check this out were also thinking about the same things at the same time.
And there's new layers to it that have made that particular Spotify discourse go even further. Like when we talked about it, there wasn't the controversy around ICE advertising on Spotify yet. That one actually has had even more legs than the Helsing investment, I would even say. That's starting to become like the top line thing when people are telling other people that they don't want to use it anymore.
Well, I think that one is kind of right in people's face and is less abstract than the Helsing investment, because it's one thing for you to say like, this company is bad news because the CEO is investing in something, versus like you're using an app that you use every day and all of a sudden there's a recruitment ad for ICE, which we don't get here. I think
we wouldn't see them in Canada.
Better ad targeting than that, thankfully. But I think that's a little more visceral for users, and that's certainly kept up the rhetoric. And I've seen people post about, hey, time to get off Spotify, that like even a year ago probably were not clued in at all to any of these issues around artist pay, the ethics of the company in general. So I think, credit to Liz Pelly, and then credit to Spotify for continuing to be terrible people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that we picked this year to start this show idea right along with the calendar year, where we started talking about it at the beginning of the year, and now we're here at the end and it's a fully formed thing. And that was timed very well with how this discourse evolved from something that we knew about into something that a lot of people started talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly wasn't a coincidence that was like things were kind of reaching a fever pitch. There was a little more discourse in popular culture, and we were talking about these things a lot more, reaching a point to being like, we should just record some of these. And we talked about, developing the upsample ethos, the theory of kind of what we're trying to get at here.
So speaking of that, I wanted to ask you, and it's a fun thing for the year end, if we were to rattle off who would be on the Upsample Mount Rushmore, for people, who is going to be those four? Because I bet you we could name four, like we could alternate and we could agree on all of them. I think we would probably know who they're going to be. Like, we've already said some names. So who would be the first person you name?
Liz Pelly.
Yes, of course, right? I mean, that deserves one spot on the Upsample Mount Rushmore. There's no doubt. The book, I bought the book at the beginning of this year too. That's when it came out.
Yeah.
And the journey of the book has been fun too. More people talking about Mood Machine.
Yeah.
So that's a serious one. Yeah.
Okay. My second one.
You got another one already? Yeah.
Is a silent partner.
Yeah.
Not a silent partner anymore. He's been in the background of a lot of this. It's Kyle Chayka.
Yes.
Who influenced a lot of how I think we're going to talk about a book that he wrote, Filterworld.
That's what we're talking about today.
And I've referenced lots of things both from that book and other things Kyle's written. So I think Kyle Chayka also, as far as like the ethos of thinking about the platform internet, thinking about algorithms, I think that's been influential. That's my number two.
Yeah.
Do you have a competing number two?
Well,
these aren't. I'm not stack ranking.
No, we're not. It's not ranked.
That's not Rushmore.
Yeah.
This is just,
I mean, it depends on if they have to be completely positive influences or not, because there's other people who we make fun of occasionally too. But I mean, I think it does. I mean, you could give Max Alpha a seat there too.
Yeah.
Because of the influence of their podcast, Liz and Max's podcast. I think you would also. Yeah, who else would you want to consider?
I think you could say, like, we talked about Subvert a lot.
There you go. And
so that still remains to be seen if that's going to be a success story or not. But I think, like, Austin certainly featured heavily and Subvert specifically featured heavily in our discussions this year.
Yeah. I think if I was going to add two to your first two of the two writers, Liz Pelly and Kyle Chayka, and I was just going to throw more people in or throw two more things in, I would lump in Sam and Saxon from the Money for Nothing podcast, because that also encouraged us a lot, And then as much as he is kind of like he's a certain figure in my mind. I got to give it to Damon Krukowski, I think, maybe.
Oh, spot. Okay.
I mean, I was also considering saying Greg Saunier, but I mean, that's a little less tangible. It's more through his art and but I mean, Damon Krukowski as a thought leader, he appears in this book. He appears in Mood Machine. So, yeah, as much as I'm not always aligned with him as closely, he lives rent free in my brain when I think about Upsample stuff. So I got to give it to him. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess if Mount Rushmore can include the bad guys, then we do have Daniel Ek is Public Enemy.
Oh, I was going to say Rick Beato. I wasn't even going all the way into the bad guys.
He's not a bad guy. Rick Beato, yeah, absolutely. Anthony Fantano.
Yeah, that's true. We've watched a lot of his videos to inform, other topics that we talked about.
Yeah, I think Fantano's had a lot of commentary on
Spotify.
Certainly on Spotify and some of these other AI in music. Actually, I think that was some of his videos on the Timbaland stuff kind of helped me kind of round out some of that. So, Fantano's a figure, and I think he's done a pretty good job staying as an upstanding or becoming an upstanding journalist from just a music critic and a kind of silly one at that to making his opinions known about the stuff. So certainly.
Yeah, we got more than 4 people there, but that's great. It's a fun thing to look back on at this point, but we're going to talk about one of them in particular. We're going to talk about Kyle Chayka.
Yeah.
Because, he appeared in, he was your first recommendation when we started doing recommendations in episode 3, I think it was. His newsletter was your first recommendation.
Still a good newsletter.
His book was influencing our show from the beginning.
Yes.
And was probably even referenced in episode 1, if I'm not mistaken. And so I have this is my copy of the book. We've both read the book at different times, and we've held an idea of what it means to us in our minds when we've talked about all these other things.
Yeah.
And we both have different experiences where when we read the book we're like, oh, this is similar to how I was feeling, or maybe it's not, and maybe you read the book and you're kind of like, oh, I mean, I think we would both not give universal acclaim to the book necessarily. I think we would both criticize certain things about the book.
Yes.
So we've been thinking about it the whole way though. It has been one of the 2 most influential things on us, the Mood Machine and this, in the year of 2025 doing the show.
Absolutely. I think reading those 2 books around the same time, I read Filterworld a little bit earlier than I read Mood Machine, certainly was influential on the decision to do this. And certainly those 2 form a pretty large, section of my whole worldview on this stuff. And I think what I really liked when I first read Filterworld, and even before that, actually, I think I discovered Filterworld because Kyle appeared on the Ezra Klein show.
We didn't put him on the Mount Rushmore, did we? We need a more abundant Mount Rushmore to put him on.
Yeah, we need one. He'll be on next year's Mount Rushmore, whatever he gets up to. And so I heard Kyle talk about some of these ideas, and it resonated with me so much because I had been thinking a lot about how, even back then, all musicians knew Spotify is no good for musicians. And so there's this, economic incentive to let's get off or think of alternatives or whatever. But I remember, even in the years before Filterworld came out, having to think about how my experience of being on the platform-centric internet was not only making the arts, economy worse, it was making my experience worse. I felt like I was enjoying music less, but I was maybe enjoying the movies and TV I was watching less. And I had a very loose kind of vague sense that maybe this has something to do with streaming services and the prevalence of media. And I think Kyle really put a lot of those ideas together in a very coherent way that really, really stuck with me.
Yeah, would it be helpful, because it was one of the things that I noted down in my more recent revisit of the book, if we read into this conversation basically what Kyle defines Filterworld to be, because it's the title of the book?
Please.
So what I chose to represent this is that he defines Filterworld as a, quote, network of algorithms that influence our lives today, which is very broad. But I think the important parts of the definition are that it influences our lives today, as in he has felt a change.
Yep.
And I think, to jump ahead slightly, one of the things you could criticize about the book is that he is of a certain age where he has watched things change a certain way. And so for him to make this observation at this point in his life is perhaps unsurprising for various reasons. But he sees it coming to a head now, and that this network of algorithms has grown exponentially stronger in that period of time to the point today where the commercial power of the algorithms is higher than ever. And we can all anecdotally talk about our own experiences of this, but he defines Filterworld very broadly like that, as a canvas of things that has grown. It's like overgrown everything else around him. And then he says in the subtitle on the cover of the book that it flattened culture.
Yeah.
And what he means by that is a few different things. On one hand, he means that it has added to sameness and to globalization, which he, in his words, to globalization with the political meaning that carries. He says that it means content and stuff that you would call content in a derogatory way is crowding out art. And he has a background from like visual art gallery world, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I don't know exactly. He's not a musician, like in terms of what his background is. I think he would hew closest to visual art.
Yeah.
But in general, he's saying like things that you would call content are crowding out art in the marketplace and in people's attention share, flattening culture. And he talks about, quote, the transformation of life into content when he talks about this crowding things out. So that's the, easily kind of, you can grab that just from the title alone. But that's how he defines Filterworld, and that's what he means about flattening culture. And the book is him talking through the history of some things, but just providing different examples of that.
Yes. And I think what surprised me a little bit of that, like he goes quite broad with it. And, I think the obvious examples where the algorithms that we use online directly, impact the art we consume and experience is like, streaming services, both like, visual media, like Netflix, and that being your primary way to like watch TV and movies now, as well as music streaming services. That my whole thinking about this was kind of limited to purely that, just being like, I feel like I'm enjoying music less and I'm watching less, fewer movies. And he expands that as well into like visual design language, which again, like I think he does have some background in that, and talking about one of the most, to me, his most salient points in the book that was something that like I just truly hadn't thought about. And as soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, yep, that's really it. As he talks about, he uses this other term, air world, to describe
airspace.
Airspace. To describe, I'm going to do my best to do this. You know how like in every city, if you travel at all, there's like the cafe or the brewery. You can find this, he might call it like the Air Cafe or the Air Brewery or the Air Record Store. And the cafe is like, I guess now it's kind of like got like beige, like sandstone everywhere. It used to be like concrete and wood tables. Revolver in Vancouver has the look.
Right, yeah. And it's now been separately memed as the millennial burger joint in retrospect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And there's different kind of gradations of it. But, he's making this point that he'd be traveling to like Mexico City and Tokyo or, Europe and end up at the exact same cafe, right? In Mexico City, he's at the same cafe he'd be at if he was in New York or San Francisco. And how that, like, to me, that rings very true, partially because due to the, like, influences of these algorithmic forces, like, I seek those out as a consumer, right? And that's partially due to when I type Google, like, the word cafe into Google Maps on my phone, there's a little bit of probably, like, user preference heuristic that surfaces like, I'm sure you've used Google Maps and you're not actually seeing truly every coffee shop. When you type in coffee shop, it's surfacing the most likely things you mean by that. So that's influencing, if I'm like checking Instagram before a trip and Instagram knows I'm traveling somewhere, it'll often be, showing me things that I'm like, oh, I should go check that out. And that's just, the things I like to look at based on where I go usually. Kyle talks about like Yelp and the influence of Yelp in that early stage of like, and then the accumulation of that being that you lose, obviously, if you're in Mexico City in a cafe that looks like it could be in New York or Tokyo or San Francisco, you've lost something there, right?
And it's not just the completely unpretentious way of doing that, which is that I think at one point in glowing terms at places like McDonald's and Starbucks would pride themselves on the fact that they could offer people identical experiences in other parts of the world. No, these are places that have the pretense of being like a special place, and yet there is something in the air that he would call part of Filterworld that has caused these places to look the same. Not like just because it's a standardized McDonald's franchise, but because people's preferences have been rolled up into the Filterworld construct and then get propagated. Yeah,
and he talks about like, it goes many layers deep as well. So like not only that, user preferences have become a little bit globalized to look a certain way, but the preferences have been shaped by what the algorithm favors. So like things that look good on Instagram become mimetic in the real world, right? Like a primary color artwork. Maybe if you're listening to this, you can like picture the kind of thing I mean. And if you can picture the cafe I'm talking about, you kind of know what I mean. Like that looks good on Instagram, and that is why it is everywhere.
Oh, you're talking about that like corporate art style too?
Yeah, like the corporate art style, the design language. It's just the like it's minimalist. It photographs great, and it looks good on a small screen, which is so interesting because like other aesthetics might not look that great. I think now there's like actually even countervailing forces, like the whole prevalence of like cottagecore, this like messy sort of grandma's cottage vibe. That's like kind of anti the minimalism look, although it's still, and then again because that gets memed online, that makes it into the real world.
He gives 3 examples early on. One of them is the generic coffee shop that we've been talking about. One of them is Instagram face, the cosmetic desire to look this way that people want to look in highly
like the Kardashians
photos,
for a while it was like the kind of the duck face pose. That was
it has changed over time too. That's right. And then influencer voice, what he refers to as in the spoken sense of how people talk,
like the vocal fry and the upspeak for TikTok videos. I'm not even going to attempt it right now.
No, I don't think either of us are very good at that. But these are different. Like you have a visual example that applies to like a space, and then you have like a personal aesthetic cosmetic one, and then you have like a auditory one of how people talk. Different layers.
And to connect this to Mood Machine, I think Liz talks about kind of the music equivalents of this.
That's right. Yeah, Kyle also talks about that. Yeah, he calls it stream. Actually, Liz called it stream bait pop in one of her pre-Mood Machine baffler pieces.
So stream bait, which we've probably talked about on Upsample before, but there's stream bait isn't exactly genre specific, although for a while it was like alternative R&B basically. That was kind of or bedroom pop.
Wait a second. So because I was going to say I don't hear people talk about stream bait very much anymore. Is stream bait the same thing as like performative male music?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Is evolved into different nomenclature? Is it the same thing?
Do performative males only listen to stream bait?
Is that what they listen to? Yeah.
It kind of, because like the joke for the performative male music, if you're unfamiliar, is it's a type of dude who listens to music that would normally be marketed to young women, not like child women, but just maybe a little younger than him.
Yeah, like a lot of pop music. Yeah.
And so it's like it's like a guy who's listening to like Clairo. You know what though? It's not, because Performative Males, that also famously includes Big Thief, and Big Thief is not stream bait. In fact, I think good music is more likely to be like a performative male listening to just like a really good singer-songwriter. That's included, as well as listening to like, because Clairo actually is an old example of that kind of stream bait.
I'm sure Clairo is stream bait. I think that's where I noticed the overlap. I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I think actually, because the performative male is like, this guy is not actually listening to music that is like this sensitive and self-aware and this good. That's, I think, that. So I would say, but there's a little overlap there.
Yeah, but it's more expansive, the performative male music. The stream bait is more specifically about the homogenizing of the music, like the generic coffee shop homogenized the cafe aesthetic. Yeah.
Yes. And so, stream bait has these characteristics of, it's got to kind of blend easily in a playlist with other music, something that you would never want to skip, something that's like so inoffensive, easy listening, and nice to listen to. Yeah, so it's alt R&B, indie pop. There's kind of, there's like a coziness with stream bait as well, I would say. Like, it's not too like bright and poppy. It usually has some kind of cozy factor as well. And again, it just starts to all blend together, and that's like the flattening effect that Kyle's talking about in Filterworld.
Yeah, I noticed some words that he goes back to in a few different situations that I kind of just jotted down for myself that are literally single words that come up at different times. And I was wondering if I could throw some of them at you, and you could tell me what this word in the context of Filterworld, where it matches with your experience. So the first one is anxiety.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember that being such a prevalent factor. I mean, I think he's probably talking about the anxiety that kind of like comes with the alienation of using these platforms and algorithms over and over again. That like these algorithms are tuned for engagement, which is kind of the root cause of the Filterworld problem, right? Like, that Instagram wants to show you things that other people have spent more time looking at. Like, that's how you end up in these like weird silos. And so the like overstimulation or oversaturation of a thing can be anxiety inducing. I guess that's my first reaction to hearing that.
Yeah. And there's different types of it too. Like, there's also the very adjacent anxiety of trying to be a creator and figure out how to make your stuff succeed in that environment, and how to reckon with it if you feel like it's not working.
Yeah.
And what it means about like what you've been making, and like, do you need to change what you've been making?
Totally. Yeah, that feeling of like chasing the whims of the algorithm, which I think we've also spoken about, that like that was kind of the Big Things Coming essay a little bit. I was speaking to that anxiety that creators were having, smaller creators, of like, I have to post every day. I have to include my face in the, now it's like carousels, or it's, you got to always be doing a reel. And yeah, that awful feeling of, you're praying to a God that you can't understand and that will never understand you or care about you. And so, yeah, I guess that's, yeah.
And that's what we would underrate how weird that is, I guess, because it has only been in this last decade or two that we've actually been good enough at, or like that we've been slamming the measurement of this stuff enough that this has been able to take off so dramatically, this pursuit of engagement through judging what other people like. Like, there have been past ways where people have been able to recommend stuff to other people. And in that vein, another one of the words that I wrote down that defines the book for me is taste. On the positive side, for sure, if anxiety is a common negative theme, the antidote that keeps coming up to anxiety, I think, for him is taste.
Yeah. I really liked the focus on taste in his book, because I think, and I'm sure I've said this here earlier as well, but that like the real problem for me, that kind of I think I've used the word like anhedonia, the like sort of ho-humness that comes with eventually, saturating yourself in a platform like Spotify or even Netflix or whatever, Apple Music, is that your taste muscle, when you hear something, begins to atrophy, right? If you're just being served recommendations all the time, that taste is this like active decision about like, do I like this? What about this do I like? If this is challenging for me, can I sit with this for a second? Or am I just going to like skip to the next thing because it's in a playlist and I know I like everything else in this playlist? And so, yeah, he talks about like taste as kind of an antidote that like you should be focused on developing your taste. And that was actually something I took from the book. That's when I started doing this whole exercise I've talked about, where I began logging stuff I added on streaming to a database on my computer. And my rule was like, when I listen to it, I have to just like write one thought down about it. What did I think? And I found that to be like really beneficial, just to have a single thought about it. Listen to it like, do I like this? Is this interesting to me? Instead of just letting it wash over you.
Yeah, because the recommendations that we're talking about here, it's like if you only engage with the recommendations of the platform, you've been deprived of the chance to get that recommendation from somebody else where it would have come with some meaning. And so the feeling you were describing is the feeling of not having the meaning that you would expect to come with such a thing. So it takes you away from a layer of enjoyment that you should have, that we've been used to having with these kind of things.
Yeah. And I think, these platforms, they think they can synthesize taste, because I think if you were a big data person, you would say, well, like taste is just like a series of preferences. Taste is just, I can know your taste by doing this or that, and looking at all the decisions you make, and then I can like perfectly recommend you the next algorithm, or the next recommendation for your next album you're going to listen to. And that's not the same thing as taste. That's kind of the absence of that friction. That doesn't allow you to evolve. That allows you to like, start listening to this slop of things that will be pleasing to you, but to call it your taste is like insincere.
And if you wanted to get political about it, and you wanted to talk about what we talked about a couple episodes ago with like the AI art and the fascism conversation, and Kyle doesn't actually go that far in this book down that road. He definitely alludes to it at a whole bunch of checkpoints, but the whole book is not politically charged in that way. But if you did, you could easily say that the more we live in an environment that is full of like tasteless recommendations, that we no longer have the opportunity to like be in community with each other and organize and connect more deeply with each other, such that we can organize towards better lives, or whatever the left side of that argument would look like. I mean, it's easy to imagine that it's more than just the appearance of AI art. It's what AI art does that causes something like this, which I acknowledge.
And I guess in a world where like everyone's lost their taste, or is losing their taste muscle,
it's desirable to the authoritarian overlord.
And that can easily just be subsumed and changed, right? I mean, we probably already see this with the surprising popularity, people love the dead internet, that some of these like slop platforms or whatever, people have like completely lost any sense of what they might like to see or not. Many people have, and instead are just going for like whatever is going to make their brain light up in a funny way. And like, and so I think some of this Filterworld stuff really primed us societally for AI slop and set this problem up. I think thankfully many people are not too far gone and able to go like, no, actually I don't. Or that's like, that's a bridge too far for me. I don't actually want to be seeing slop in the algorithm. I'm good.
If I was going to critique the book a bit, I mean, one of the things that I could say is that I find that to be some of the most compelling stuff in the book.
Yeah.
And that could easily be, let's say, a long edition of his newsletter. Or, I mean, he writes for The Atlantic. He has, it could be a long Atlantic piece. But I feel like to get to the length of a book, he has added in a bunch of stuff about being a millennial dude that dilutes it a bit, I could say, as one of my, and like a lot of the visual aesthetic stuff, a lot of the generic coffee shop stuff is like that. The part I think the part that I cringe the most at is the part about Reykjavik, about Iceland. I mean, I get it, but
is he
as an
talking
argument
about
in the book, about how people travel there just for the photos and you're living your life just for Instagram. It's
Sure.
we get that experience, but the way that he talks about it, it does those parts of the book for me. If I'm being critical, they feel like him just kind of opening his middle-aged millennial diary a little bit to reach a page count at the most critical way.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And he certainly tells on himself for being, he's a type
he's in on it. Yeah.
Well, he's a type of guy for sure. Yeah. And when you read the book, you're I'm unfortunately not that far off from being
I was going to say, how many steps away are we from it? Maybe not that many.
Yeah,
so.
I'm not that far away from being that type of guy as far as, traveling to those places and, drinking the coffee at the cafe in every place. Actually, since watching or reading the book, I've thought a little more when I'm traveling about maybe I can go to the cool high design concept cafe once, but try to go some other place as well. That's helped me a little bit. Yeah, there's certainly some padding. I think it's as soon as you crack open this idea of looking at the influence of algorithms on culture, you can just point at anything and go there's an IKEA lamp that probably is influenced by an Instagram aesthetic in my house.
See the summer episode we did where it's in frame.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, it's prominently in the frame.
Filterworld lamp in my house.
We used Instagram lamp to frame our shot.
I have Instagram artwork prints on my wall. Yes, and it's
guilty
as
charged is what we're saying.
Yeah, guilty as charged. It's all there. But he's spitballing a little bit maybe.
And his interviews are like that too, sort of. In one sense, they are good interviews for the book because they are for me, a lot of the people he interviews one of his longtime friends who has done different creative projects and is trying to open a bookstore and is going away from prioritizing a successful Instagram art style or something.
Yeah.
If I recall, he interviews influencers of different stripes.
Yeah.
A lot of his interview subjects are very much an everyman character to insert. We can easily picture this, but then at the same time, they also feel kind of meh. His interviews, to me, they don't add a huge amount to the substance of the book, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so it was probably almost a year ago that I read this book. So if I'm misremembering, is this the book that contains the anecdote about the Amazon bookstore?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh,
go off on the Amazon bookstore because I also don't like that part.
That is a horror story.
I also want to just interject that we have unknowingly carved a Mount Rushmore entry above everyone else, which is, of course, If Books Would Kill, which is literally what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We took us 30 minutes to realize that, but that's true.
Yeah, we're doing If Books Could Kill.
Anyways, go off on the Amazon bookstore.
I don't remember his writing about it being that bad. I remember just the horror story of, I guess Amazon opened a bookstore where they were trying to do basically a physical representation of what works on Amazon.
The Amazon shopping experience.
Yeah, where it was a bookstore that just had only the top best-selling books, and the prices would fluctuate hour by hour as it happens.
Yeah, maybe they have e-displays of the prices instead of cards.
And
maybe
it works like the Amazon store. And I think it was a bit gimmicky or whatever, but it was kind of this clear picture of that sucks, and it's such a there's no editorial opinion from a great bookstore has an owner or staff with opinions about books and someone you can talk to. Taste, exactly. And so this, he talks about how this flopped. I would say my immediate criticism, now recounting the anecdote, is yeah, that's horrible, and I don't think anyone would have said that was a great idea.
Yeah, not a hot take to say you don't like the Amazon bookstore.
It's maybe it's a bit of a pat illustration of his point to be if a bookstore is a good thing, then this Amazon thing is a bad thing.
And yet he also criticizes regular bookstores. Well, actually, that's not super fair. He mentions that regular bookstores now often have a book talk section. As another layer to how Filterworld is infiltrating the book buying experience. And so he does mention that. That's to his credit, actually. I would say that it's not just limited to the full on Amazon Books experience, but that he's noticing it everywhere.
Yeah, I would say he does a decent job of not going full. It's funny because like the term Luddite has now been, I would say, rightly reclaimed to mean people who are against specific, like the original Luddites who smashed. So what were they?
They were labor activists of a sort, right? And that they were concerned about the impact of technology on work.
Yes. And I believe they were smashing like automatic looms, and so. I think Luddism has kind of there's a new Luddism movement which we may end up talking about, and so it's a positive thing if people refusing to use AI tools at work and things like that, saying like I'm not going to use a tool that's going to replace me one day. I'm not interested in this. I'm
not going to use a tool that's going to replace me one day. That is a distillation of the original Luddite thesis, right?
Totally, and so I was using it when I just said that in the near past way of saying someone who's just cranky about technology, and great marketing from the like business owners to be like Luddites were just anti-technology, and it's like, well, no, Luddites probably didn't mind using the looms. They understood what was happening to them. Sorry, that's a long tangent about Luddism. So he does a good job of not just being like technology bad, which I think you could tilt into with this.
Like another book from another very distinct point of view that I don't think we will ever give an episode to is Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation, which has not a Luddite, not a faux Luddite thing that in the way that we're talking about, but is definitely critical of the technology in and of itself and wants to limit the technology. And this is not so much like that.
If you want to hear my opinions on Anxious Generation, you just couldn't listen to the If Books Could Kill episode about that book.
Yeah.
That's which is actually more nuanced than you might expect if you know anything about that podcast and that book.
I'll give you another word from the themes that I retained from the book.
Yeah.
And we've already talked a little bit about this one. Passive.
Well, that, immediately makes me think of Liz Pelly, Mood Machine, where, Spotify asserts in much of its internal research that that's what consumers want. They don't want to engage with the art they're consuming. They want it to be, in Spotify's case, background music, that's how they can get away with doing perfect fit content, that's the ideal consumer is passive, not engaged with.
And the way that you justify passive is by saying like it's functional, or it's on like these mood-based playlists to serve a function in your day.
Yeah, which is again very I don't know, it feels very anti-art, right? To say like, what is this music or what is this art doing for the consumer? That's when we're talking about like music as a commodity or art as a commodity to be consumed. And that's kind of what Kyle's talking about, is in this passive thing. If it is just fodder, then, that it fodder begets fodder, right? Like it's got this like negative death spiral of both quality and importance.
And yet, this is something that people have been complaining about in every generation of technology.
Yeah.
All the way back to the phonograph versus live music.
Yeah.
And then there's like the radio versus live music. There's TV versus the radio. There's video games versus whatever, cinema. Every generation of technology has this complaint. How seriously can we take it in each generation? Probably somewhat seriously in each generation. Like each of them have kind of had a point, and yet there has still been beautiful stuff created in each medium.
Yeah.
The thing is, they are always going to be lumped in. When a new medium comes along, the content, capital C content, is going to crowd out in people's attentions and minds by competing with the art and winning given the rules of the new medium.
Yeah. I've definitely always been a little suspicious of the this platform makes music bad, or this platform makes movies and TV bad. Because I think, yeah, sure, the incentives are skewed one way, and that can have some influence on, we talk about the anxiety of chasing what an algorithm might want and the impact that can have on art. But of course, these platforms are filled with incredible music and art, and they probably always will be. And so I've always been a little bit dismissive of those arguments, although now, having just made the point about where we're at with like slop and, this kind of problem of people's taste being so flattened that people are going to start listening to like AI music and being fine with it.
We haven't mentioned this. I have to bring it up now. We've acknowledged in our text about how Joe Rogan loves AI music now.
You guys got to watch this. Jamie, pull that up. We got to put in a clip of Joe Rogan showing. Is it Ice Cube? Is they're all like Ice Cube? They're like R&B.
Yeah, he has somebody, and he keeps like getting Suno or whatever to generate like a Motown version of. It's 50 Cent.
All 50 Cent, but it's like multiple 50 Cent songs,
and he's like doing like soul, like Marvin Gaye in the style of 50 Cent, in the style of Marvin Gaye, and he thinks he claims he thinks it's like the greatest music ever, and he's just like been sucked into the it's incredible.
It's
really
such a bummer. I mean, it's not. It's unsurprising.
It is somewhat unsurprising.
It's unsurprising. It's I haven't really ever seen clips of someone so adamantly like trying to make their AI consumption so cool.
And he's like literally talking, his guest is literally Elon Musk on one of the episodes where he talks about this, so that adds to it.
It's pretty dark times. So that to be said, I don't think saying like this technology is making the art bad is that persuasive, and yet when we look at where we're at with slop, I'm now a little more persuaded of some of those points.
Yes, because there is a whole new, very believable Luddite concern about Suno and Udio and music creation. There's a new layer of it for that.
The other argument one could make, say, because the counter argument is that, people say that about the phonograph, people said that about tapes and the proliferation
or about
of
things
CDs.
Like GarageBand or Ableton even too, maybe.
Sure, that it's this like democratizing is like either cheapening it or whatever. I think the specific thing of enormous data sets and algorithms that are so specifically tuned to users' preferences and can like do these kind of micro targeting things, that is, I think, very unique, and it is at a scale. I think whenever the phonograph was first kind of commercially available and in most people's homes, you were not mainlining your favorite live music acts like 24/7 and and being kind of micro targeted into this like niche of stream bait pop on your phonograph. That just couldn't happen at that scale.
And the phonograph makers' business models did not depend on it.
Totally. In fact, the phonograph's, makers' business model depended probably on people still going to like see live shows quite often, so they like know new artists that they want to buy the records of. This
was a big factor in how what we now call the Great American Songbook or Tin Pan Alley took shape.
Yeah.
It was to create a standard repertoire of songs that popular singers would sing and then would also record and circulate so that they would be known widely, and it would encourage more people to engage with the popular music of the day, which it was.
Totally. So, I do hear that criticism of like every new technology is going to bring some pearl clutching. And I'm certainly not anti-technology. I think the Luddites, the pearl clutchers, have a little bit of fighting power in this argument, just on the merits of the scale, if nothing else.
And Kyle is far too romantic about the Twitter of his youth to be accused of being anti-technology.
Yeah.
He wants the technology to be the way of the elder to mid-millennial, the way they remember it from their salad days, for sure.
Totally. And I think that's like kind of throughout the book is like, oh, the internet used to be good. And I'm pretty suspicious of that claim, I think.
I think of that claim, people from his age to ours, we know that we actually missed the internet that we talk about when we're talking about that, the Web 1.0.
Yeah.
The truly, quote, open internet. We missed it.
Yeah.
It was the internet that we grew up learning about,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the internet that we ended up participating on when we came of age.
Yeah. I think to romanticize, to give like a more concrete example, we're talking about like the chronological timeline on Facebook and Instagram, right? When it would not show you an algorithmic, what might keep you looking the most, it would show you the most recent thing one of your friends had posted. I think many people, and Kyle, I think even makes a point about that, is like nostalgic for that. It's a bit of a silly thing to be nostalgic for because I think that was like we were already on the rails to get where we are by that point.
Yes, literally speaking, because another thing he says is like, algorithms were designed by people for people's goals or for corporations' goals.
Yeah.
In this case, the goal, and that's also my argument against the word enshittification. That's why I don't like the word, because it is priced into the business's goal that it will eventually go that way. To expect otherwise is a little foolish, and enshittification is almost like the holding of the expectation otherwise. But Facebook from day one, to be the VC-backed company that it was, it had to have the goal of eventually getting there after it onboarded enough users.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of rose-colored glasses about like the near past of the platform internet, but really, if we're critical of the current state of the platform internet, you have to be as critical of that kind of rosy. It was all fun. We were all on Last FM and 8Tracks
and Twitter,
and even like even just prior to that, that music was being primarily like pirated or using Groove Shark or whatever to listen. That was probably not that much better than where we're at right now, economically, attention span wise. It's gotten worse probably faster than anyone hoped, but yeah.
Kyle talks about early on in the book, he talks about the computer room, which you and I, we know when somebody says computer room, you know what they mean.
Yeah.
But kids today, they do not know what it means.
Right.
This is about the internet that we grew up with, the one that is no longer. The computer room for me, I'm talking about in school.
Yeah.
In a classroom.
Yeah.
When you go to the computer room with your class and you sit down at a computer, which ran probably Windows 95.
Oh, yeah.
And took floppy disks.
Yeah.
And could use the internet, but in a very small capacity. And perhaps, you would switch that on and off. And like you would sit down, you wouldn't be able to use the internet, but then like maybe they would let you go to one specific site or something. And you wouldn't know how to go somewhere else yet at a certain point in your life. Or then maybe you would discover the possibilities of what's out there, but this computer would limit you in some way and you wouldn't be able to go off and do what you want to do while you're at school.
Yes.
But you could learn about it.
Yeah.
And there was this computer room experience that would be completely foreign today, because the phone experience it's not limited at all unless it is by the parents or by nowadays we're talked about anxious generation, by the schools or by whomever. But all those guardrails are off, all those training wheels are off in terms of how people were exposed to technology. But we and Kyle were of the age in this decade-ish cohort where we were encouraged to get out there onto the wider internet in an encouraging way. It wasn't like this big bad thing that was out there that everybody thought was harming all of us yet.
And it was someplace that you would go to and then somewhere that you could leave.
Yeah, it didn't dominate your whole experience.
You could step in to the stream and step out of the stream instead of just being constantly washed over by the perpetual torrent.
You could put on an album that you were listening to instead of turning on Spotify, literally too. Yeah. And it's on and on down the line of various apps and experiences.
Yeah. And that, for each of those, there were, again, gradations over time of how that went, right? Of, maintaining an iTunes library when the internet was a little more ubiquitous. I'm a little nostalgic for that. I think that was probably I probably feel more, fondness for like some MP3s on my hard drive that were, several hard drives later that I've copied over, than I do for like my Apple Music library, which I don't own. Not going to come with me, like on a hard drive, like my actual collection. So yeah.
You said my fourth of my 4 words just now. Do you know what it was?
No.
It was library.
Oh yeah. Okay. He talks a lot about, the kind of along with the taste, he's talking about this curatorial sense that you be developing a library of. Is he talking about mostly for oneself, or? I
think this is towards the end when he starts to talk. He starts to be a little bit more prescriptive.
Okay.
And I think the library, to me, I come away thinking of it as the manifestation of like deciding to curate, deciding to recommend, deciding to apply or hone your taste. The result of doing that in this environment to rage against Filterworld is that you'll come up with a library of something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think there's a bunch of really small ways of doing that. One is like list making. We're going to talk in a bit about our recommendations all from this year, but like, I've been doing that for, looking back over music I checked out. I don't know if you ever went to school with him, but my friend Will Friesen does a big list of the top albums.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I don't know about this.
Of like kind of a large-ish group of friends, some cap, some non-cap friends. And so he's like aggregating everyone's top 10 lists. And so like, every December I make a top 10 and send it over.
This is still active.
Still active.
Oh, awesome.
It's like a Facebook thing that I've been a part of for now. I don't know. It's just like the 8th or 9th year of it, I think, probably.
And I was just mentioning to you too that I'm doing again the Roots Music Canada Penguin Eggs Critics Poll again. So I picked my albums for that and I sent them to you as well. So that's a fun exercise that a bunch of people do.
Yeah, and like that's in a very loose way a library, because when I go back and look at those in later years, and I did that this year to go like, what did I say was my top 10 last year? That, these are things that I still really like coming back to. I actually used the libraries a little bit when I was record shopping and putting some records down on my Christmas list, where I could go, what are the like albums over the last 5 years that I like were in my number 1 or number 2 spot, and using that, to flesh out a more real life library of music that I love.
Yeah. Okay. Let's square the circle here. This is going to be good. Bear with me. Okay. We have produced a library of not only the episodes and the main subjects that we talked about, but we also have a library of recommendations, because since episode, I'm pretty sure 3, we have been recommending something each time. And the crazy thing is, however many episodes we end up doing in 2026, we are like stacking our libraries now. We're going to have a whole nother year of subjects where at this time next year, we can look back and, just like we're saying, the people who influenced us the most this year, Liz and Kyle and, Damon and whatever other shows and thinkers and artifacts. We have that. We have the library of the subject matter that influenced us this year. Yeah. We have, the stories that we talked about because we were in them directly, or we saw them, like the VSO and the Side Door and even like the online ones, like the Kara one. I keep thinking about the AI music night and that was canceled because of the backlash.
That was really good.
Things like that. We have libraries of subject matter, and we have libraries of recommendations, because we went out of our way to pick like 20 plus things each over the course of this whole year. So, and we'll do that again. So we can look back. We have another thing to look back on.
Absolutely. do we want to? Are we going to just like give the rundown of our recs? How do you want to?
So there's a few different ways we can manipulate this. You're the one who has it in front of you at the moment. I mean, I think what I'm most curious about is if you scroll through your own, which ones stand out to you as the truest? Like which are the ones when you scan them now, when you look back on, you're like, oh yeah, that was one of the things that I really dug this year the most.
Sorry to say it's not Swag by Justin Bieber, but you know what? It was a
good album.
It was interesting. It was interesting. Andor season 2. Actually, it's the first one that jumps out. Partially because I recommended it and then promptly stopped watching it, and then I just finished watching it. It's so good.
You did a couple of shows. You did maybe 3, 4, 5 TV.
Yeah. So that one. I also recommended The Bear, which also very good. Andor stuck with me more. The album Ullman Johnson Wilkes, jazz record that is really good that you actually recommended to me.
That's a funny one because there's a few those guys in that universe, that kind of sub scene. They've put out a few albums this year. That one doesn't even stand out to me as one of my favorite ones of what just they put out this year. But I mean, I like everything they put out, so I totally give it a check mark nonetheless.
Pick maybe one more. I really think that the album Slump by Improvement Movement. I listened to that as I was making my top 10 again. I was not allowed to submit it for the 2025 year-end list because it's the deluxe edition came out this year. It has to be 2025 releases, and this was a 2024 release. But of my recommendations from this year, that's definitely one of mine. All right, do you want to see what you wrote down? Pick some.
Okay. Yeah, no. So which ones stand out to me? I know I did some sports. I know I did some YouTube.
Yeah.
I did albums for sure still. So all the sports ones, I mean, that was just what I'm thinking about at that point. I did a bunch of YouTube ones. I'm looking at it right now and I see we didn't do an episode on this, but there was like the Giacomo Tura fake guitar scandal.
Oh yeah.
I recommended Adam Neely's video about that.
Good video.
That has been interesting because in some ways it's almost like an anachronistic scandal. Like this isn't about AI music. This is about a person who like had this elaborate scheme going. Yeah. So it was kind of, that's one of the like random music stories that maybe I'll remember.
So funny.
From this year. In terms, definitely like I discovered, like me as a creator, I have been so influenced by different sports creators, and like I have my favorites who have been with me for a long time. And I got a new one this year in Pablo Torre with Pablo Torre Finds Out. So that one, I'm going to remember that one as something that I started to watch in 2025 and got hugely inspired by. He jumps onto my list of inspirations now, along with like John Boyce of Secret Base and the Steve Dangle podcast, the Toronto Maple Leafs fan podcast, who I've been following since forever and ever.
Sweet.
Right up there on my list of influences is that show. Then this is interesting for music. I recommended the album Sunwise by Breacha Campbell. And at that time I did not know that I would end up seeing her live in Vancouver on a North American tour. I initially picked that album to recommend on Upsample because I was like, this isn't going to make any content at Rhythm Changes, so I have to shout it out here to make sure that I shout it out. Didn't know I'd end up doing this huge Rhythm Changes story about it and about other related music. So I think as far as 3 that stand out to me, those are 3 that really stand out to me. Now hold that thought. Keep it here because now I'm going to look through yours.
Okay, good.
And I'm going to tell you if there are any that I took particular interest in after you picked them as some of your recommendations. And I mean, when I look at it from that way, I was very happy that you alerted me to a band that I have since read a lot more about. I don't honestly know how much I'm a personal fan of them, but that I have stumbled into the Geese discourse.
Yeah, okay. He's a Geese
and
guy
I don't know if I am bought in on all the Geese hype, but the fact that there is so much hype about them and what they represent, it has fascinated me ever since your timely recommendation of Geese.
They are fascinating. If the Geese record isn't your thing, you should check out the Cameron Winter album. The frontman at the end of 2024 put out an album called Heavy Metal.
You're correct, because I did, and yeah, I'm more interested in listening to that.
That one is a great record.
Because for me, there isn't anything remarkable about the latest Geese album versus whatever else I managed. Like even the previous Geese album,
which is really good.
Yeah, they're good. But that is my favorite project out of the ones that are in their universe. But just like the story of the band and what they represent is interesting to me as like a next generation level of indie rock kind of thing.
Yeah, it gives you some hope for the weirdos that like you can still just do something genuinely weird and the culture will like latch onto it.
They are going to get lots of people saying they're overrated for sure. But honestly, these days, that just means you're popular.
Yeah, totally. And you're saying like, oh, you're not sure if you like can align with the hype.
Bought in, yeah.
And like, of course, by now, no, like, they're memed to infinity. Everyone's saying they're like the best new thing. It's like, they're a really solid indie rock band. I like the record.
I'm trying to remember like when we were that young, what was the band? What was the equivalent? What was it? Arctic Monkeys are legitimately good and highly regarded all the way along. So you couldn't say Arctic Monkeys, I don't think.
No.
Arcade Fire is kind of, when they won the Grammy.
Yeah, they were. I'm trying to think of it as like something even more closer to like our 20s.
What? Because we were too young for when I'm talking about Arctic Monkeys and Arcade Fire. Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, like, I guess like
Vampire Weekend.
Vampire Weekend is closer for sure.
I think Geese is probably better, uncontroversially better than Vampire Weekend.
Yeah. Like Father
Maybe
John Misty. Unfortunately, like I think we were at an unfortunate age where it was kind of a heyday for a lot of these. So like a lot of them didn't really hold up. They were just sort of the moment, like a You Had to Be There band. And I think Geese has transcended a You Had to Be There band. But only a few years before the Geese popularity explosion, it was the band Black Midi, who has since broken up, but they're kind of doing the same thing. Like hardcore art school kid stuff, which has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I have not ever listened to them, but yeah, I believe it. Yeah. So what do you think? What's your band that was our version of Geese? Yeah, I'll have to reflect on this.
Get in the comments. I'm going to find my thing that you recommended that I really stuck out to me. I mean, a lot of these records I've checked out and I really liked.
A lot of them I recommended after we had both checked them out, so they were kind of like loaded recommendations in that sense.
Yeah, the Breach of Campbell record that you just mentioned, definitely, it was great. I actually just got back into this one this week as we were kind of like looking at our recommendations from the year. My French is not good enough to pronounce the name, but the Lumigmag.
Yeah. Record. I recommended that in our last home episode. I recommended that when we were last here doing this.
And I must have given it like a brief listen when we first did, and then I got back into it. It's definitely more wintry than summery, I think. And so I went on a nice walk today and put that record on. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, and that one is different than what I was just talking about with Geese, because I have listened to the rest of their discographies, and that new album in particular, it stands out for me in their discographies. They have another album that's called Habitant, and it's so long. Yeah. It's almost like a double album's length.
Okay.
And there's this kind of sprawling, half improv, half straight ahead sensibility. Like, it's kind of ambiguous, a lot of their other... I still really like it, and I'll happily like line up all of their records in a playlist and play it as I'm going about my day, but I think there's something kind of concisely captivating about Ce qui tourne dans l'air, about their latest album. There's something that almost has like, it almost feels like the fiddle parts get brought in as like samples, or there's almost like a half beat aesthetic to it in some way. The ensemble hits differently on this one. Yeah,
the jigs and reels and the fiddling almost sound like they're happening elsewhere. Like the mixing choices are interesting, where they're brought in, and they seem to have like sometimes like not a ton of relation as to what the rest of the ensemble is doing. And honorable mention shout out from your recommendations list, the Venus Theory YouTube video titled "The Future of Music is Noise." I watched that whole thing and really dug it. I like Venus Theory.
That is what our friends at Critical Listening would call the Bloom scroll, right? Like that's an optimistic take on where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you like creativity through noise.
Yeah, totally. It's an optimistic take on current music.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the year in recommendations. We don't need to make new recommendations right now necessarily, but we have done over 20 of them each. And shout out to our one guest, Madeline Reed, who popped in 3 recommendations in her one appearance.
Yeah, awesome.
We could have some guests in 2026 on the show. Who knows how it'll shake down. Is there anything that comes to mind when you think about like, what do you want to do on here in 2026?
I think more guests would be cool. I think I am very curious where the state of the arts and entertainment business is in 2026. I think we're about to see even more consolidation, even more weirdness, even more AI stuff, and maybe some positive, some negative stuff, right? There's going to be like litigation around some of this stuff that probably happens in 2026. And so it will be an important year to watch.
There's the Living Wage for Musicians Act.
Yep.
Not that I wouldn't say that's likely to be passed given who is in Congress in the U.S. right now. That could change at some point, but I don't think we need to do predictions of that sort or anything, but I think we can predict that the topics that we've been talking about right now, they are accelerating.
Yeah. It's not getting quieter.
In a not great way.
It's not getting quieter.
We're going to see what comes out about them. In terms of like what happens on any given episode, like obviously I had so much fun doing the side door thing. I learned a lot from it. I have another one of those that I'm already cooking.
Ooh, can't wait.
And I think I did tell you what it is at some point. But I will, at some point in the coming months, I will see where that takes me.
Yeah.
And
cool.
I hope to do at least 1 or 2 more like that, specifically on here with you, as opposed to even Rhythm Changes articles or anything, because I think they play into some of these. It's
a good format
stories. They play into what we talk about a little bit better than when I'm talking about all these other people's music. So
totally.
Yeah, I want to do a couple more like that. I want to collaborate with some of these people who are on our Mount Rushmore if the opportunity avails itself, or if they're interested.
Yeah, it would be very cool. Stretch goal to talk to Max or Liz maybe. I think that'd be very, very cool. We can reach out to them one day.
Yeah. This has been like, I mean, I've done a fair number of podcasts now. I've been involved in a fair number of podcasts. I think this year I produced about 90 podcast episodes.
Wow.
Hosted or co-hosted about half of that.
Yeah.
And this show has definitely been some of the most fun that I've had in podcasting in my 5-ish years of podcasting now. Yeah, absolutely. It's been such a fun outlet.
It has been a huge blast, and thank you to anyone who has checked us out. This has just been like such a fun little hobby project to do, and the fact that anyone at all downloads and listens or checks it out on YouTube is like awesome.
Yeah, we are surviving in the cracks of Filterworld. We're not phased.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not pursuing the algorithmic recommendation loop here. I'm just, whoever finds us can find us.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's been so fun. Thank you for doing it with me. We're going to keep doing it in 2026. Thanks for being one of the... There aren't but a few of you sometimes, but we appreciate it. And we're not deterred, like we were saying.
Yeah, we're doing our thing.
Yeah, so Merry Christmas. Have a good holiday season. Happy New Year. And I don't know what kind of schedule we're going to come back with necessarily. We can, that's TBD, but we'll be back at some point, I'm sure in January.
You'll see us in January.
January 2026.
Yeah.
So, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Take care.